Hello, Kathryn here. Welcome to my channel and my video. I am going to be reacting to this interview between Matt Davella and Greg McKeown concerning the personal philosophy of essentialism. Now, I need to confess something here. It's not until recently that I've begun to reflect on the way that I live my life and my personal philosophies and matching them to known somewhat structured philosophical regimes such as essentialism. I've never sought out something like this. It's more like I live a certain way and I have my own personal philosophies that I just kind of came up with. And I might find that they align with something that other people know about, talk about, and live. So it could be that I am, in fact, an essentialist.
This is about the disciplined, continual, perpetual pursuit of less but better. I love how you just framed it as less but with ambition.
In the pursuit of my major life goals, which for the past several years have been my language learning and my PhD, sometimes I have to pare my life down to service those and then, my basic needs. So I have a part-time job, that pays my bills, so I don't really have to worry about those things. And I have to take care of my mental health, which is often a problem. So something has to give. Otherwise, I'm just too distracted and I cannot focus on what I need to do or strategize in a meaningful and productive, effective way.
They enjoy attaching this label to themselves. I'm so busy. Oh, I'm just overwhelmed with all this stuff that I have to do. How do you view our hustle culture today? And is that something that, as you would describe it as?
When I first came to America, I would ask people how they are.
So I'm kind of on the opposite side of this guy's experience. I'm American and I moved to Britain, and it's taken a bit of time to kind of adapt my American work ethic to the British or European one. So it's not that people don't work hard, but there's not necessarily that busy, 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 busy mindset either. And a lot of times busy is make work or just not serving some larger goal.
Busy. I mean, this whole flavors of busy. And so I do think that something has changed. It's not just in our own minds. Something significant has changed. And even in those years, I think we've gone from being connected to hyper-connected. And that's not a small change in the human condition. It shifts.
Yeah, always being available, always checking your email, your phone, your text, calls, the Zoom, the everything. It feels like you are unable to be in your own bubble because a lot of times we just don't want to say no to people. I've developed a default no, unless it's really important. I mean, like visas or my job, being employed. I will say no as much as possible, except for when it would actually be a knock against me.
Media, oh, that person's doing this thing, they're in that place, they're pursuing this idea. And so keeping up with the Joneses has been a deep part.
Major tenet of my life philosophy is do not compare. It will make you miserable. It will make you feel inadequate, inferior. It's self-limiting. It's self-defeating. You're just kind of allowing this negative energy to just sit around like a fog. When I see people that have something that I would like to have, I bypass the jealousy and the envy, and I ask myself one question. How?
I remember when I was getting started out as a filmmaker, and a lot of the people that I surrounded myself with, who I thought were good mentors, talked about how they will sleep when they're dead. That working hard is the most important thing. That if they only got 4 to 5 hours of sleep or less, that's okay because they got the job done. That
sleep is not a luxury or a waste of time. It's vital. And if you want to have the kind of real deep learning or observance and perception and all the things that you want, you need to sleep. The brain needs to take the time. Your body needs that time. I think that you're going to burn out much faster and much harder and maybe never really come back if this is the way you approach things like sleep and rest.
I noticed that in the early days of a company, they would be maybe have a state of clarity, a certain clarity, a sense of this is what we're trying to do, and this is who we are, and this is who we aren't, and this is what we're not trying to do. And so they would have that clarity. If they got that clarity, it would drive success. And with the success would come an increase of options and opportunities. And that sounds like the right problem to have. That whole pattern, everything I just described. But it did in fact turn out to be a problem if all of that opportunity, those options, if it pulls you into what Jim Collins has called the undisciplined pursuit of more. And if these companies would fall into that problem, they would start to plateau in their progress or start to fail altogether. Now that's true for companies, and it's also true for individuals. The same.
Because I'm not so engaged in what everyone else is doing and thinking and wanting and saying, I've learned to listen to my intuition. When I don't want to do something, when I really, really don't want to do it, I won't. There's no pep talk, no motivational speech, and no method of persuasion good enough to get me off my butt and actually walking in that direction. It's like I know it's wrong.
The subtitle is The Disciplined Pursuit of Less. It's because it's an antidote to that problem. That's the whole idea. And that we can become essentialists before we have to, before we start to fail altogether, before we see that we've given up all the things that mattered most for all the things that mattered least. You can act upon your life and upon your desire to make a contribution and become more discerning so that you can go from a level of success and contribution to an even higher level of contribution.
All the times that I said no to a party I did not want to go to, or putting together some group that I wasn't interested in, or any other social obligation that I just didn't want to do, or because I didn't apply to certain jobs that I knew were wrong for me, or just continue on a path that was wrong for me. Without all that extra noise, I have a more direct, clearer line to that intuition. I can keep my focus a bit tighter and a bit stronger. Now this still allows some space for me to explore potential options and opportunities, and believe me, I do keep my eye open all the time about that. I guess the essentialist mindset just gives you that space, that buffer that they're talking about in this interview.
Right, so if you do the 5 hours a night, yeah, you can do 5 hours a night. You can do that for a few nights. But there's a point at which the discernment level starts to go down, the joy level starts to go down, and if your joy and discernment starts to go down, it means that you have less ability to pick the right next project. And so very quickly, you are falling into the pattern.
Yeah, always trying to cram more and more and more into your social life, into your work schedule, your portfolio. You get tired, you get less reactive. You're not as agile in your thinking and decision making. The discernment, as he says, just drops off a cliff. You have to make that room. Now you may ask, okay, then why do you keep studying more languages? Why study more than one at a time? Well, it's because I've allowed the space for that, because these are things I want to do. I find them stimulating, engaging. It's fulfilling to me. And there are some spillover benefits and knock-on benefits to doing this. It's not just to serve a work purpose. Sometimes it serves a life purpose. I enjoy it. That's why I do it, and that's why I'll continue doing it. There is no point to working so hard if you're not enjoying some aspect of it.
To confuse it. And so I go, to my shame, to the meeting, and even if some great thing had come from that meeting, which in fact it didn't, surely and clearly I made a fool's bargain. What I learned from that lesson is the simplest idea, which is if you don't prioritize your life, someone else will. And that's that idea of being heightened awareness of what the priority is and making sure that we aren't just busy pursuing lots of things, but that we are creating space to act.
Time is the ultimate non-renewable resource. It's valuable, but if you don't treat it like it's valuable, why should anyone else? If I don't value my education, my experience, what I have to say, my own voice, why should any of you? Perhaps the ultimate question in life is, who am I? And when you try to be everything and everybody, you can just lose sight of the core self. You lose touch with it. And because you've allowed yourself to be pulled in all these different directions, you look back and you ask where you really went. I think that's what he's getting at here. You just getting so lost in this super productive, super social mindset, it actually will backfire on you. So if you pare it down to what really matters, and you give yourself that space to explore what really matters, then you can make better decisions to serve what it is you're trying to do.
Clarity be the guide. But to allow that to be the guide, we have to behave in a variety of ways to make sure that we can even hear it amidst all the noise, amidst all the passionate projects. And that, to me, is a much better guide and a much better way to ensure that we actually get utilized for our best and highest use, rather than just...
I think my core self and my core passions have always been there. And as I moved along in my life, there was that voice telling me, this isn't right. This is right. You found it. Hold on to this. And then making way for that path. And sometimes my social life was nothing. I couldn't read every book on philosophy as I started the PhD. I couldn't cover every single corner of economics. I'm not going to be able to become fluent in every language I study. I accept that there's not necessarily a terminus to the things I started.
Do you find that sometimes you need to sprint, that you need to maybe put in a little bit more hours or tip the scale in one direction to finish a project? Or do you find that generally your balance is in check?
Well, I think that my experience and my expectation is that unexpected things will come up. Like, that is what
I do appreciate this idea of balance with this. I kind of have always thought of counterweights. So as strong as my depression can be, then I need a counterweight equally strong or stronger. So I need to develop coping mechanisms to deal with it. Sometimes I do have to pour a lot of attention and time and effort into something to get it done. I know that that's coming for me with the thesis, and I'm not looking forward to it, and I'll do it when I'm ready. Other times, like now, I'm front-loading a lot of effort into my YouTube channel because it's difficult to get that first forward momentum. So I need to be very vigilant about the analytics and the audience. I need to be able to be quick and reactive and to see what's not working and what looks very promising and to press that. So that means I'm having to front load all of this effort at this point. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to be able to ease off the gas once it gets going. I mean, I might have to keep pressing. But what have I made room for in order to do this? That's kind of the point here with the buffer.
Of time and energy. In fact, I have a CEO friend who says to me that he takes every time and budget estimate and multiplies it by pi. And I thought he was exaggerating at first, but I found that to be really accurate. And so I think the key is not to say, well, do I push extra in those moments or not? Well, yeah, I mean, if you want to get the thing done, you're bound to have to push harder than you thought. It's to make sure you're not taking on so many things that when you do that...
I admit I've never considered multiplying anything by pi, but I'll tell you what I am kind of not doing right now. Earlier this year, I submitted a paper, and in order to get it to the journal, I had to edit and edit and edit. And 3 weeks later, they rejected it. And I know why they rejected it. I agreed with why. And I realized something. I hated writing academic papers. It made me miserable. It made me nauseous. And I knew that I had to rebound from that setback. I gave myself a few days to just feel sorry for myself, but I didn't repackage it and send it to another journal. I just kind of let it sit there. And I had all these other papers in various stages of writing and editing, and I still haven't sent any of them. Why not? Something is bothering me. It's like there's this growing unease with academia, because I think I admitted not only to myself, but to some close to me, that I felt resigned to it. Should you stay the course and do what appears to be the logical thing, if you feel resigned to it, let's say I applied to many jobs and I finally got some papers published, even though I'm exhausted and there's such little reward. I don't even get paid for those papers. They're just expected. Will I hate myself for doing it? Will I be mediocre? Will my productivity just sputter out because I hate what I do? I've been in quarantine alone for 2.5 months. And in that time I started the YouTube channel and I learned how to make videos. They're still not very high quality, but I use what resources I have. And I have produced more videos than there are days the channel has been on. What does that tell me? When I was a teenager, I loved making little movies. When I was a teenager, I wanted to be a doctor. And when I was a teenager, I wanted to be a polyglot. I have found that going back in time and just shoveling that passion serves as the best internal motivation fuel. What if this is a sign? Well, as you can tell, I'm in a contemplative mood. I'm going to check out a bit more of this work, but I think that there's a lot of alignment here. There's a lot to be said about this. Who are you? What do you want? What don't you want? Just give yourself that space. Alright. Oh, that's enough pontificating. If you found any value in this, please consider liking, subscribing, commenting. I really enjoy the feedback and engagement from my audience. Also, check out this interview, and Greg McKeown is the guy, and Matt DeVella, of course, and I will see you later.